Alright, so I realize that because I'm simply just a voice on the screen, that it's probably a little impersonal. So I'm going to try to remedy that as much as possible here by properly introducing myself and trying to explain my background so you all can kind of see where I came from. So let's get into it. So while I was contemplating what topic to make a video on next, I realized that because I'm not showing myself on camera, it may be a little difficult to connect to people. So the purpose of this video is to try to explain how I got started and some of the different obstacles that I faced throughout my journey, without airing out personal grievances from my past. So if I'm going to do this video right, I need to go back to the very beginning of my journey. I think, like so many others who become involved within the occult, I was always the quiet kid who kept to myself. I never really had much of an interest in what other people were doing, and my family would often catch me in a room where I would be by myself holding a conversation with someone who wasn't physically there. This was a time before cell phones and computers, and the longest time my family didn't even have an air conditioner, and I spent the majority of my time outdoors exploring. And because my family lived outside of a small town, there were plenty of wooded areas for us to get lost in. So growing up, my family was Catholic, and my mother would often take myself and my siblings to Sunday Mass every now and again, but it was never consistent and my father never attended with us. When I began getting older, I was placed in the catechism, which for those of you who don't know, catechism is religious schooling for Catholic children. So at this time in my life, I was completely unaware that there were other religions in the world aside from Christianity, because I was never exposed to much as we lived in a small town in the southern United States. It wasn't until I was 14 and a freshman in high school that I was introduced to 3 new people. One who claimed to be a witch, another claimed to be a magician, and another claimed to be a warlock. This was also about the time that Wicca was becoming extremely popular, and just about every book was written from the Wiccan point of view. The idea of magic and witchcraft intrigued me. I studied whatever I could get my hands on, and when my father brought home our first computer with dial-up internet, I found so much information online. Now, not all of this was good, and most of it was not even credible. Now, it didn't take me long to realize that the idea of the Wiccan religion didn't resonate with me, and I felt that the religion as a whole lacked a rational and philosophical aspect. As I continued my research and studies, I learned about ceremonial magic and the Golden Dawn. Now, this appealed to me due to the amount of structure, and this is probably due to my Catholic upbringing. But without getting into childhood and teenage trauma and getting off topic, let's just say that when my father discovered what I was doing, it didn't go over so well. So I practiced what I could in secrecy until I was able to go off on my own. I delved into the Golden Dawn system, but soon realized that the idea of intoning Hebrew and calling on angels seemed to repulse me. This was probably largely due to the events that took place after my father became involved, but I digress. So I found myself practicing more as an eclectic witch and merging different things together, but I still desired the religious aspect. So I began researching Celtic mythology as well as Greek mythology, and it wasn't until I was introduced to a Hellenic organization that centered itself around Neoplatonic philosophy that I turned my focus to the Hellenic pantheon completely. This was also about the time that I was introduced to the Greek magical papyri, or the PGM for short, and the works of Franz Barden. Now, I quickly became fascinated with the PGM. I mean, it's a literal collection of magical workings and techniques dating back to ancient Greece. Who wouldn't like that? The idea of working with this resonated with me completely and set me on the path that I'm on today. So a little unverified personal gnosis. While I was a member of the organization, I came face to face with Dionysus during a dream as he freed me from restraints. It was at this point in my life that I knew there was absolutely no denying the gods or turning back from the path laid before me. Now, unfortunately, the Hellenic group imploded due to a problem that plagues the pagan and magical communities, at least here in my area, which is the constant infighting and bickering with each other. However, I did walk away with the foundation that I could build upon, and I have been slowly over the years, building on my own religious practices, making efforts to not just mimic what others are doing, but make it truly unique and personal and my own. Besides, every Greek city-state had their own calendar, festivals, and ceremonies, but so much of us are just trying to copy and remake the same material. I have continued incorporating the PGM into my religious practices and utilizing it within my magical practices as well. Studying other works that have been published, taking online courses, anything that revolves around the PGM, just whatever I could get my hands on. Now, as I've gotten older, my life has changed pretty drastically. I have a career, got married, had children, life. Me and my wife bought a house, and following that, I immediately purchased a shed for the backyard. This was purchased for the sole purpose of becoming my own personal temple, and has been since. Now, as time has gone on, I have been able to invest more into the temple, finishing the inside, and over time it looks more and more like a temple. Now, I also returned to Neoplatonic philosophy from when I was a member of the Hellenic organization. This has since given me a deeper meaning of my religious practices and more meaning to my life in general. Now, since the years leaving the Hellenic organization, my practice has been completely solitary, and I had even completely removed myself from the world of social media. Now, that was obviously before I began dancing around the idea of starting my website and then the idea of the YouTube channel, and I'm curious to see where it'll go from here. But starting this out, I decided I would keep my identity private, and I chose the name Dion as it is the first 4 letters of Dionysus, who holds a central focus within my religious worship, so it just popped out to me and it felt right. So I'm going to end this video with a story that I find funny. My father, while he was making every attempt to deter me from my path, had told me about an event that happened to him when he was younger. Now, a little history of my father. When he was younger, he was always drunk. So he tells me that one night he had gotten into a really bad wreck and he was looking down on his body when he heard a voice ask, "What is it that you want?" My father tells me that he shouted out that he wanted a son. Now, he claims to have woken up a little while later, and the humorous aspect of this testimony is the fact that he was drunk when he heard the voice. There have been many people who have drawn parallels between Dionysus and Jesus, and if this event did take place, I believe my father heard Dionysus. Now, since then, I have heard my father tell different variations to the story, so it may have all been made up. However, what he doesn't realize is how he solidified my decision with it. What I do know is that the wreck did happen, as the vehicle was dumped in the woods behind my grandfather's home, and I've personally seen it. I also know that because of the events from my past and the synchronicity over the years, I am exactly where I need to be. So I'm ending this video here, and I invite all of you to join the Discord server, and I hope to see you there. So until next time, may the gods bless you.